We are here today in New York during Climate Week and the UN General Assembly, coming together with CEOs and executives from all walks of life to hear directly from them on how they can help to create sustainable impact through their businesses.
Empowering business leaders to navigate the complex ESG landscape is critical. And at present, 96% of S&P 500 companies disclose on climate change. 40% of them lack measurable targets for managing it. In this interview, we'll be speaking with Mariella Lacour-Alma.
Oh, good to see you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
All right. CEO and co-founder of Datamaran, who leads a team of over 120 data-driven experts dedicated to implementing ESG solutions.
So the ability to use technology and AI to be able to decipher all of that information out there was a huge opportunity, but of course at the time was very much untapped.
We'll also hear from Chris Labrie, Director of ESG at Applied Materials. And we'll talk with Ellen Jakowski, Chief Sustainability Officer at Mastercard, who's focused on driving the company toward a more sustainable future. Datamaran stands as the market leader in ESG software, aiming to integrate ESG principles into the leadership of every company globally. So I'm very curious, Datamaran, you're a co-founder.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you came up with the concept. What's your background?
Yeah, so I've been in this space, the ESG space, for 17 years.
Okay.
And I was working for a large standard setter in sustainability reporting.
Okay.
And in touch with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, essentially training them on how to be more transparent around sustainability issues. So this was the thinking. These issues, climate change, social issues, governance issues, they're not going to go anywhere.
No. If anything, they're only becoming more prominent.
Exactly. When I met my fellow co-founders, one a former Wall Street trader and the other one a big data AI consultant, can we actually come up with a solution that can bring this data to executives?
Right.
In an objective way, in a standardized way, so it gives them the evidence that this stuff is happening.
Right. So Mariella, is this your first time at Climate Week?
Actually, it's my 10th, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Maybe even more.
Really, for the whole life of your company.
Yeah, so it's really the best week to reconnect with the network. And we've seen the topic of climate and sustainability being elevated, also in terms of the profile of people that attend here.
Sure.
So this week we're here to celebrate our latest round of financing that we received at Datamaran. But also we're launching a docu-series called The New Heroes of Sustainable Business at the Guggenheim.
Oh, wow. So a lot happening for you.
A lot happening, very busy week.
Yeah, changing environment. Well, with that in mind, tell me, how does Datamaran help its clients realize and sort of stay abreast of all these changing ESG goals?
So we started Datamaran about 10 years ago, really with the idea in mind we should be elevating ESG and sustainability data to C-suite. And what happened in the last 10 years is really that we've seen an increased emphasis on the topics of sustainability, but also companies struggling with how to prioritize and where to focus. And as we all know, there's been a lot of cases of greenwashing and C-suite leaders now being responsible for these topics, really trying to figure out what do we do and how do we have the evidence to know that we're on the right track. So Datamaran as an AI platform is focusing on giving executives the right kind of information. We analyze through our AI platform regulatory information, media information, but also the competitive landscape to provide these executives with the information they need to report back to the board, but also to a variety of stakeholders.
Got it. So it sounds like you're about accountability, about actionable information, and really helping executives implement these strategies based on data.
Exactly. So it's about making the right kind of choices, having the evidence to do so, and then having the confidence to also translate that to practical strategies that work for your business, that make ultimately your business successful, and of course, do no harm to the world around you.
Right, right. And you've obviously been in this field for a long time. Why is tech and software so important to ESG implementation?
Yeah, good question. I think overall it's about professionalizing the way in which you do ESG in-house. So I think there's three main reasons why it's so critical to do it this way now. Firstly, it's about the pace of change. So it's difficult for corporate leaders to stay abreast of all the trends, to understand what's going on. The platform tracks over 400 different ESG risks opportunities in real time. So for execs, it's important to know where to focus. So that's where the AI comes in to help you understand where you should put your emphasis on. Secondly, the level of scrutiny currently placed on businesses. So you need to be able to prove why you make certain decisions. So with AI and technology, we're able to offer our clients an audit trail so that they can use when they go through an audit. For instance, especially with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive being out there and that becoming a requirement for business. And thirdly, there's a massive ESG skills and literacy gap. So we also see it as our job as a service provider, as a software provider, to see how can we automate that human expertise and get it out there in the market.
Got it. I would imagine you get a lot of companies knowing that they have needs, but not really even knowing what those needs are. And you're there to help them figure that out.
That's typically the first question. So we see through the regulatory developments, especially coming from the European Union right now, a lot of companies saying we have to get started. It is a necessity right now, but the first question is, where do we start? And then we try to keep it simple and say, okay, you set your strategy, which also means figure out what not to do. Then make sure you set targets on those issues you decide to do well. So you can actually have an impact and track them. And then you start looking at data collection. Where do I find the data across the value chain? Fourthly, it's about reporting that out.
I am very curious about Mastercard's approach to ESG and sustainability. What are some of the steps that the company's taking?
Sure, well, our philosophy is doing well by doing good. So ESG is integral to the strategy of the business. And we have three key pillars: people, prosperity, and planet. And we set very ambitious goals in each of those areas. For example, in planet, for climate action, we have a goal to be net zero by 2040, a decade ahead of climate science. In addition to that, though, when Mastercard goes net zero, our carbon footprint isn't that big, but we do have enormous reach. We have more than 100 million points of acceptance on our network, more than 20,000 banking partners, and more than 3 billion cards in circulation. When you think about 8 billion people on the planet, 3 billion cards, that's a huge responsibility and an opportunity.
And how has technology helped Mastercard streamline and really optimize its ESG processes?
Well, the field of ESG is very nascent. And in terms of how it's evolving, particularly inside corporations, is clearly important, right? And if you think about how the financial aspect of companies and the capabilities inside, a CFO's office, for example, have continued to strengthen, that's what we're doing. It's early days for sustainability. So for example, at Mastercard, we were one of the first in the industry to create an ESG controller role. Right? And with that comes access to all sorts of incredible technology that the financial services industry and CFO's offices have been using for quite some time. So we've been working to automate all of the data collection that we have in our ESG report, and also looking at the regulatory landscape, which is changing very fast and evolving very quickly. How can we use technology to make things work better, faster, with better controls and more consistency inside the company?
So ESG is your responsibility at Applied Materials. How has Datamaran helped you optimize and sort of change your workflow?
Well, I've been working in ESG for over 15 years.
Okay.
And in the past, what we had to do, if we wanted to know what was the material issues facing our business, we needed to conduct a number of surveys, interviews, internal and external, very cumbersome process.
Right.
And also somewhat qualitative and hard to repeat.
Right.
And so really what Datamaran brings is an AI-based approach that assesses the risks quantitatively and gives us a repeatable and robust solution. What's happening in ESG right now is there's increasing regulations, and one of the big regulations that's coming is called CSRD, or Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive.
Right.
That's coming from the EU. And companies like Applied Materials, like us, even though we're a US-based company, are subject to that regulation. And we have to be able to show that we did the right thing, that we used the right methods to determine the material issues of our business. And Datamaran does that robustly and repeatably.
Looking ahead, what are the trends that are shaping the future of ESG? And how will technology actually support those changes in evolution?
Yeah. I think firstly, there's going to be an increased demand on executives to focus and lead with a clear strategy on sustainability that is very much tailored to the company. and then for the C-suite leaders to be able to explain themselves as to why they've made certain choices. I think secondly, it will become clearer and clearer who has a role to play at that C-suite level and what the data and information needs are. So we see the appearance of the CFO right now, the general counsel, there's the investor relations team, there's the CEO, there's the relationship with the board. But from a governance standpoint, a lot of the routines in terms of what insights are being presented in which meetings, that is still to be fine-tuned because it's such a new responsibility. For Datamaran specifically, our trends will be focused around better insights, so making sure we have good quality insights to share through our platform, and also workflow.
It sounds like what you're talking about is a more holistic solution that your platform is really aiming to provide.
Yes, there's money now that goes into these companies that are working on ESG solutions, on carbon solutions, and I think in the next 5 years we'll see exponential growth in the adoption of the ESG tech stack, if you will.
Exciting times ahead for you.
Very much so.
Companies face a multitude of challenges when building an effective ESG strategy, and having the right purpose-built technology is critical in today's fast-changing regulatory environment and ever-evolving stakeholder demands. Datamaran helps organizations monitor the landscape and gather the data and evidence they need to support an ESG solution that works for them and supports the global push toward equity and sustainability.